here with Supervisor and Doctor. He got a PhD in special education, Yxstian Gutierrez, and we're in front of the Mount San Jacinto College. That's the STEM building back there. And a beautiful day being spent here in the Hemet San Jacinto area, and we're here to talk about this reckless uh, um, chainsaw approach to eliminating the Department of Education. Now, the Department of Education was created to help communities like ours here in Hemet, San Jacinto, Banning Beaumont, Eastern Coachella Valley, and Imperial County. You see, the funds that go to the schools come from local taxes. And so if you live in Beverly Hills or Bel Air, then you have a lot of people with high earners that are paying a lot of taxes into your local school districts. That's not the case in working class poor areas like Imperial Valley and here in Hemet and San Jacinto. And so those school districts struggle to hire the teachers, to have the facilities, to have the equipment, the technology, the tutorials to help a disadvantaged community compete in equal footing with other schools. And so the Department of Education helps those schools under Title I. In addition, there's different programs like helping students with disabilities, the special ed courses. Two, it funds the Head Start programs. Three, it is the civil rights watchdog to make sure that students aren't discriminated against in the classrooms and in the school systems. And then they also have this TRIO program that helps low income or first generation college students like me and I believe you too, right,
Yes, yes.
Yxstian? That whose parents didn't go to college to help them acclimate, because we know that first generation students have a higher risk of not completing because they're not accustomed to it and it's difficult for them to adapt into those universities. And so those programs to help those first generation college students are also part of the Department of Education. So what do you think about the
Mhm.
news that you heard?
Well, it's really shocking, and I think it's very devastating. I think to communities like the Hemet San Jacinto community, Congress member, and so I appreciate you doing this podcast here because it's very very concerning. I've been speaking to the chancellors in the region, the school district superintendents as well, and everyone is very concerned. You talked about first generation college students. Well, those are the 17 federally funded programs that fund many of those types of programs like TRIO, Upward Bound in our community colleges, and so they're very very concerned about this.
Tell us a little bit more about your background. You know, you're a
Mhm.
professor,
Yes.
and what was your specialty in, and where do
Mhm.
you teach?
Well, thank you, Congressman. So I was actually a special education teacher for 14 years, and teaching in the school district system, and then I also taught with National University in Cal State San Bernardino as well as a special education professor, and I'm now a county supervisor.
You know, this executive order is very vague and sloppy,
Yeah.
like all these that we've seen. So there's not a lot of understanding in terms of what exactly is going to happen. But we know that it's been a dream for the conservatives to eliminate the federal Department of Education and put it back into the states. And it seems like Donald Trump, President Trump, is doing that, and you know, under the
Mhm.
guise of waste, fraud, and abuse,
Mhm.
and under trying to say that, you know, well, we'll still keep the programs running.
Mhm.
We'll just move them to other agencies uh,
Mhm.
after. First of all, firing 50% of employees from the
Yep,
Department of
I heard.
Education and
Yeah.
firing, for example, 40% of the employees of the Small Business Administration, where he wants to put all the Pell Grants and the
Mhm.
student loans under. So, how does that make sense to you? And how would the implementation of processing
Mhm.
of the fundings and the programs with students with disability change? And what would the impact of those be for students?
No, it's a big impact. I think one of the things that you have to understand is that just this area, this region, Riverside County specifically, where the amount of school districts and students that we have is actually larger than 15 states, the population of students. So it would be a big, big impact. And I think that in that respect, it's a major issue because some of these departments that he's planning to transfer these programs to may not have that experience, you know, in understanding IDEA and understanding Title One and understanding Title Five and what Title One actually does. For example, Title One helps some of our most poorest schools with reducing class size. So if you get rid of Title One or you don't understand that program too well, that can lead to major impacts. Also, our English learners too. That's part of also Title One as well, and the Every Student Succeeds Act.
So, what does it mean for parents? Like, what does it mean
Yeah.
for parents? What does it mean for our students?
Yeah, I think our parents are concerned right now, and I think our parents are specifically concerned. Our office has received a lot of questions in regards to special education. These are, Department of Education has always been that watchdog for students with disabilities, and I think that's a major question right now. And the bigger question is, as it transfers to these other agencies, who will be the watchdog, and will those staff members be trained enough?
Yeah,
It's a major issue.
when we speak
Yeah.
of disabilities, I think a lot of people think of individuals who require a wheelchair or
Hmm.
that have cerebral palsy, but it is also people that are on the spectrum or
Absolutely.
individuals that need a little more time
Hmm.
to take a test, and so it's a lot more students and families that would
Yeah.
be impacted by this,
Yeah,
right?
and when there's so much uncertainty too, coming as a special education teacher with IEPs and making sure that the accommodations are being implemented, who will help oversee all of that? That's the major concern right now.
Yeah, and I've heard so much from parents who have children
Hmm.
with disabilities like autism that oftentimes they're in the school district and they're
Hmm.
not listened to. They're
Hmm.
treated like they are a burden,
Hmm.
that they'd rather expel their students, and they don't know their rights
Hmm.
under the federal government and what the schools actually need to do to provide their child services in order to help them learn in those environments. And so when you don't have a watchdog, when you don't have an agency that is looking out for that student, then
Hmm.
more parents are going to be pushed aside and kids will be
Hmm.
more marginalized.
Yeah, no, and just to also add, it's a mechanism or a tool for the parents to reach out to the Department of Education office, its OSERs, to let them know about these complaints and things that are happening. So it remains to be seen what will really happen, because as these, it's a major program, and you have to really understand these disabilities and accommodations. And if you just transfer something to
Yeah.
another agency, how does that really work?
So the way I see it,
Hmm.
it will take away some support that schools in low tax based areas and communities rely on to be
Hmm.
able to compete with wealthier communities like
Hmm.
Bel Air, Beverly Hills.
Hmm.
And when you take away that support that is working to help them achieve the
Mhm.
scores that they need on their test, or help them best prepare them to go to college, or to get
Yeah.
a job after college, after
Mhm.
high school, then you're only taking away by taking away that support, you're making it more difficult for
Mhm.
communities like ours and our parents
Mhm.
to work so hard to give our kids the opportunity through an education. you know i I many people know my story.
Mhm.
My older brother was the first to graduate from high school in the
Wow.
family, and I followed suit. And I knew from a very young age I wanted to be a doctor and come home
Mhm.
and serve the community. But I
Mhm.
also knew that growing up in a family that didn't have a lot of money or
Mhm.
didn't have friends in professional
Mhm.
areas, other doctors or other professionals that could mentor me or guide
Mhm.
me, or friends in powerful places that can help open doors for me,
Mhm.
that the only way that I had to get
Mhm.
ahead in life, to help my community, to help my parents, to help my family, was through an education.
Mhm.
And so I studied hard. I was that first generation college student that the
Mhm.
Department of Education under the TRIO program helped.
Mhm.
All my schools were very low income, high
Mhm.
percentage of people needing food assistance,
Probably Title I
Title
schools,
One
right?
schools.
Yeah.
So we received some assistance there,
Hmm.
and so to know that because of an education, I was able to achieve my dreams, come home,
Hmm.
and help others. Taking that away from students from underserved
Hmm.
or resource poor settings is going to be detrimental. What
No, I agree. And one of the things that Title I funding provides, and it provides about 10 to 20% of funding for many of the school districts, reducing class size, instructional assistance, the English Learners Program as well. So that's a major concern for me too. When I first heard the news that they were dismantling the Department of Education,
Yeah.
so it's a very very big major concern because I think it's going to impact many facets of people. It's English learners, individuals with disabilities, poor schools, and programming. Some of the teachers are funded through Title I dollars.
So in our society, oftentimes people see the vulnerable as the other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's those kids, not my kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, well, that my kids doesn't have this. My kids, you know. So it seems to them it's like well, whatever. This is not
Mm-hmm.
going to affect me, but this will affect all our kids,
Yes.
right? For
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, by reducing the funding, by reducing the capacity to run these programs, the teachers will be impacted. Uh,
Absolutely. In fact, many of the schools in Moreno Valley Unified School District and most of these school districts are Title I schools, and some of their funding comes to fund teachers, FTEs there. So it remains to be seen what will happen there. The other thing I just wanted to point out too, as well, is that the majority of the funding for the Department of Education is Title I and IDEA.
what's
So,
IDEA?
Individuals with Disabilities Education
Hmm.
Act. So, the majority of the funding is just those two major areas.
Hmm.
So, if you take away the department and move money around, it just remains to be seen. What will really happen
So
there.
it means larger class sizes. That
Yes.
means that student, your child, will have less attention from a teacher because the class sizes are going to be bigger. That means there's going to be less
Hmm.
teachers in the area.
I worked in a Title I school for many years, and we were able to keep our class sizes reduced. I mean, but if we didn't have that funding, it would have been 36
Yeah.
to a teacher.
How about these programs like STEM for programs for girls?
Hmm.
Special tutorial programs for students.
Instructional assistance
Is
as well.
all those things will be gone, which means that what your school wants to pursue, whether it's a STEM building or whether
Hmm.
you want to update a century old high school and get a new learning center for the students,
Hmm.
those would be not achievable
Hmm.
moving forward, right?
Yes, absolutely, and that's the part where it really remains to be seen what will happen if it is so, like they say, that it's going to transfer to another agency. Well, how will that agency really implement those programs?
Look, at the end of the day, Musk and Trump and that administration, they're all billionaires.
Hmm.
Their kids have never experienced what our students are feeling or what they've gone through, or probably never gone to a public school.
Hmm.
And so I think we need to really push forward put our people, our constituents, front and center. And
Hmm.
before we end, you have any message that you want to give?
No, it just is very concerning. I would say with the uh, dissolvement of the Department of Education, like the Congressman was mentioning, the majority of the funding of that department is Title I and IDEA, students with individuals with disabilities, and so it's a very very big concern of what's going to happen because in this region we do have many students with disabilities, we do have English learners, and those are the types of grants that fund those students.
Thank you. One of the things that really, really pisses me off about all of this is that the district I represent, California's 25th district, is one of the most impoverished districts in the state of California. Our students are struggling, our teachers are working overtime, our tax base is low. We're getting help where we need it from the federal government, from the state, because of our families that are working class poor. And we all want our children to have better opportunities. That's what my parents wanted for me. And they said, you've got to go to school, do your homework first, learn so that you can have a job inside instead of outside in the fields. And so taking that away in order to find funds to give more tax breaks to billionaires is abominable. It is horrible and it pisses me off. I represent the people in California's 25th. I represent the families who are struggling to get through this inflation. I represent the students who have high hopes and dreams of being to having some career and don't have the resources or the social capital, the friends and people in high places to help that I represent, because I was one of those students right here. And I will fight tooth and nail every day, 24/7, to make sure that we keep these opportunities for our families so that they can excel in whatever they want to do and create and empower them to live the lives that they want to live. Thank you.